In 1968, young Iris and her fiancé Paul attended the grand opening of the Skyview restaurant. During the event, Paul proposed to Iris, slipping an engagement ring onto her finger. At that very moment, Iris saw something horrifying. A boy above tossed a coin downward. It was as if death itself had blown on the coin, guiding it directly into a ventilation shaft. The coin got stuck in a fan, instantly stopping it. Meanwhile, people inside the tower danced happily, unaware that cracks were spreading rapidly across the glass beneath their feet. As Iris and Paul moved into position, the metal supports below reached their breaking point. Bolts snapped loose one by one. Suddenly, the trapped coin shattered a fan blade, sending it flying straight into a gas pipe. While the dancers continued, the cracks widened and gas began leaking into the air. Everything around Iris felt unsettling. Suddenly, Paul fell through the floor. People began falling one after another, desperately grabbing onto metal beams. Below ground staff panicked and ran for their lives. Paul managed to grab onto a pane of reinforced glass. Iris screamed for help, but no one came. She reached out for Paul, but he slipped and fell anyway. Chaos erupted as terrified people tried to escape. A woman engulfed in flames ran into the gas leak, instantly causing a massive explosion. Those who couldn't run fast enough didn't survive. Iris narrowly escaped the flames. Staff shouted for everyone to evacuate immediately. The boy who had thrown the coin sprinted ahead, leading the way. The panicked crowd rushed toward the emergency exit. The walkway collapsed, killing everyone who entered. Miraculously, the boy survived unharmed. The remaining survivors rushed to the elevator, pushing each other violently in a desperate bid for survival. An old man shoved Iris aside but got stuck halfway through the overcrowded elevator doors. The overloaded elevator malfunctioned, crushing the old man horribly. Iris tried to find another way out, but the stress affected her pregnancy. She suddenly noticed objects sliding sideways, and the ceiling began to crack ominously. Realizing disaster was near, she quickly climbed upward. The floor split in half, creating a steep slope. People slid uncontrollably downward, landing on the reinforced glass. A woman thought she had survived, but when she looked up, a piano teetered dangerously. Once again, death intervened, dropping a coin onto the piano, which came crashing down onto the poor woman. Everyone in that group had fallen. The boy escaped, smiling smugly, until the piano landed directly on him. Iris mourned Paul deeply, but then she saw another boy in danger and risked everything to save him. At that moment, the building above collapsed completely. At the last possible second, Iris grabbed onto a piece of metal, but upon closer look, it wasn't her hand that saved her, it was Paul's engagement ring hooked on a steel rod. The fragile hold didn't last, and moments later, Iris plunged into the fire below. Stephanie woke up from a nightmare during class. But it wasn't an ordinary nightmare. For 2 months straight, she had dreamed the same terrifying vision. She told her roommate about it. In the dream, there was a woman named Iris, her grandmother's name. But Stephanie had never met Iris and didn't even know if she was still alive. Her roommate suggested she go home and find out more, hoping the nightmares would stop. When Stephanie returned home, she asked her father, Marty, about Iris. Marty frowned slightly, smiled awkwardly, and clearly hid something. At that moment, Stephanie's younger brother, Charlie, said he was visiting their cousins. Stephanie decided to join him. Before they left, Marty warned them not to mention Iris to their relatives. That only made Stephanie more suspicious. What really happened to Iris? If the woman in her dreams was Iris and something terrible had happened, then where did her mother come from? Once Stephanie and Charlie reached their cousin's house, she went straight to her Uncle Howard to ask about her mother, Darlene. Howard looked shocked and quickly changed the subject. But when Stephanie mentioned the place from her dream, the Skyview restaurant, Howard and his wife Brenda froze in disbelief. Stephanie pressed them for answers. Her cousins gathered around, curious. Finally, they admitted that Iris wasn't dead. She had suffered a mental breakdown. To Howard and Brenda though, Iris was as good as gone. Stephanie insisted on speaking to Iris herself, hoping it would end her nightmares. Frustrated, Howard explained that after their father's death, Iris had lost control. She stopped them from going to school, locked them inside, and lived in constant fear that her children would die. Eventually, the police intervened and took Iris away. Later, Iris obsessively tracked their foster care progress. Once Howard and Brenda started their own family with Eric, Julia, and Bobby, Iris began sending them terrifying letters filled with warnings and gruesome photos of dead bodies. Eventually, they moved away and cut all contact. Stephanie begged to see the letters, but Howard and Brenda refused. After much pleading, Brenda secretly told her where they were hidden. Stephanie found them, and what she saw was shocking. The woman in the photos matched the one from her dreams. That meant the dreams were real. Determined to find answers, Stephanie drove alone to search for Iris. Following the address, she arrived at a remote mountain hideout. Through an intercom, she spoke to Iris, who urged her to leave immediately. But after Stephanie revealed she was her granddaughter, Iris agreed to let her in. On one condition: she had to empty her pockets first. When the heavy door opened, Stephanie stepped inside carefully. The house was full of strange traps, even the ceiling covered in spikes. Iris explained it was all protection against unseen threats. As Stephanie moved forward, Iris nervously told her to shut the door quickly. Suddenly, a fire extinguisher fell outside. She warned Stephanie not to touch anything. Everything could be deadly. Finally seeing her granddaughter, Iris smiled warmly. She asked about Stephanie's mother, Darlene. Stephanie explained she hadn't seen her since she was 10 and didn't know how she was now. Stephanie began asking about the nightmare. Iris told her it wasn't just a dream. She had once seen the future. She foresaw a disaster. Years ago she was with Paul on the rooftop. A woman's hat flew off, and a boy tried to toss a coin, but security stopped him. Still, he insisted. Just as Paul was about to propose, Iris warned him, the building was going to collapse. Everyone would die. Paul looked confused, but Iris rushed to grab the coin from the boy's hand, the key object that would trigger the butterfly effect. She ran downstairs, grabbed a burning pot and burst into the dance hall. Grabbing the microphone, she shouted for everyone to look at the floor. Some tried to stop her, but others noticed the cracks beneath their feet. That night, she saved countless lives. The building never collapsed. Later, the restaurant was shut down. Iris had stopped the disaster, but Death didn't like his plan being ruined. Years later, he returned, killing everyone who had been there that night, including Paul. Iris learned to foresee death. She spent years preventing disasters. But now, Death had finally caught up with her. She had cancer. While talking to Stephanie, Iris let her guard down. Death silently arrived. A magnifying glass reflected sunlight onto a metal tray and the beam ignited a nearby rope. Smoke began to rise. Iris believed Stephanie's dreams were a sign, proof she had inherited the same gift. Sensing danger, Iris turned her head and spotted Death's trick. She quickly knocked the magnifying glass away. Death thought she'd be distracted by her granddaughter's presence. Iris told Stephanie to stay and learn, it was too dangerous outside. She hadn't left her home in 20 years. But Stephanie refused to stay. She needed to return to school. Iris warned her again, Death was coming for their family. Stephanie didn't believe her. She left anyway. Iris begged her to take a book before she left. Just as Stephanie reached the door, Iris had a vision. The wind, the compass, the trigger objects. She knew stepping outside meant death, but for Stephanie's sake she risked it. She stepped out, threw the book into Stephanie's arms, and said it could protect the family. Stephanie still didn't believe her. So Iris told her to stand back. She'd prove it was real. Stephanie finally believed, but Iris was gone. Her family gathered for the funeral. Stephanie told her father and uncle that Iris had warned Death was coming, but they didn't believe her. Then Stephanie's mother, Darlene, arrived. Still angry at her, Stephanie walked away. Back home she began reading Iris's book. Meanwhile, the rest of the family gathered at Howard's place for a barbecue, laughing and eating, completely unaware. Death had arrived again. Bobby accidentally broke a glass, but didn't notice a shard had mixed into the ice cubes. Eric placed his drink near a gas tank, both now Death's tools. Everyone raised a toast to Iris, saying her death reminded them to cherish life. They clinked glasses and drank. Suddenly, Julia started choking. She couldn't breathe. Everyone panicked, but it was a false alarm. She was fine. Inside, Stephanie kept reading Iris's book. She saw a chapter about the coin incident and a barbecue grill. Meanwhile, Eric lit the grill outside. Bobby called Charlie to jump on the trampoline, unaware of the sharp rake hidden beneath it. Stephanie dropped the book and felt a dreadful sense of danger. The grill was lit, a photo frame shattered, and a glass shard bounced across the floor. Whose drink had the deadly piece? Howard sipped his drink. Nothing happened. Stephanie, realizing something was wrong, rushed toward Howard's house while calling Charlie. He didn't answer. The trampoline stitching was coming apart. On the way, Stephanie saw a danger ahead sign. It was like death itself warning her. Meanwhile, the shard was in Marty's drink. He took a sip and set it down. Howard went up to jump on the trampoline. It looked ready to collapse. Darlene spotted the hidden rake and rushed to move it, but Brenda accidentally hit a nearby switch, shaking the pipes below. The same rake slid downward. As Stephanie arrived, Death was ready. Howard walked to greet her, then Bobby's leg got stuck in the trampoline. Julia turned, dropping her glass. A shard landed where Howard stepped, slicing his foot. At that instant, the rake hit the lawn mower. Howard stumbled, and the mower charged straight toward him, killing him instantly. Another funeral followed. Stephanie rushed home, searching Iris's book. She found a note. JB found someone who survived. She started analyzing the pattern. Iris and Paul's children were Howard and Darlene. Howard's kids were Eric, Julia, and Bobby. Darlene's kids were Stephanie and Charlie. All were blood relatives. None could escape death. Stephanie explained it all. Death was reclaiming everyone Iris had saved from the restaurant disaster. Death followed a specific order. It began with Howard's family, then would move to Stephanie's. Marty and Brenda weren't blood relatives, so they were safe. That meant the one most in danger now was Howard's eldest son, Eric. But no one believed her. They thought she was cursed or delusional. Eric returned to work. A spinning fan brushed a hanging chain that hooked onto his nose ring. Nearby, disinfectant spilled on the floor. The fan kept turning, tightening the chain. Eric struggled on tiptoes, panicking. He knocked over a lamp, which fell and ignited the flammable liquid. Desperate, Eric ripped off the chain at the last second, but fell, spilling more disinfectant. The shop exploded. Stephanie and Charlie, worried, rushed to find him. Miraculously, Eric had survived by tearing off his burning leather clothes. But the near death convinced Stephanie even more that death was hunting them. Eric still refused to believe. So Stephanie stayed by his side, following Iris's notes to avoid danger. Then they saw Julia jogging. A garbage truck passed by. Stephanie warned Eric to stay away, but he joked around near the truck. Julia ignored them, put on her headphones, and kept running. Moments later, Julia was accidentally pulled into the garbage truck. Stephanie ran after her, jumping onto it, grabbing her hand, but it was too late. Julia was crushed. Now the family finally believed. Then Brenda revealed the truth. Eric wasn't Howard's biological son, he was from her affair. That explained why he survived. The next target was Bobby. Stephanie recalled a name from Iris's notes, William. Darlene knew him. They rushed to the hospital. William was the same boy Iris had saved years ago. He explained there were only two ways to cheat death. Kill someone to take their place or die and come back. He was dying himself and warned them not to interfere too much with death's plan. Eric thought of a solution. Bobby could eat peanuts to trigger his allergy and be revived. They bought peanuts from a vending machine, but they got stuck. Frustrated, Eric smashed the glass. They lifted the machine, freed the peanuts, and went next door, accidentally triggering an MRI scanner. The magnetic field pulled all metal objects. Eric's piercings ripped toward the machine. A wheelchair flew across the room, crushing him. Bobby, who had just eaten the peanuts, couldn't help at all. He tried reaching for the EpiPen in Eric's hand. At that moment, a doctor noticed the commotion and opened the door. A loose spring from the vending machine flew across the room and stabbed straight through Bobby's head. Stephanie, Darlene and Charlie held each other tightly. They realized they couldn't fight death anymore, so they decided to follow Iris's path and risk everything. The three of them drove deep into the mountains to Iris's old cabin. They didn't notice a coin had fallen from the notebook. An old woman picked it up from the ground. The cabin in the mountains felt creepy, as if death had already been waiting for them. Stephanie slammed the gas pedal and drove straight into the cabin. Midway the car crashed, and her seatbelt buckle trapped her in place. Now death's target was Darlene. As long as she made it safely inside the cabin, everyone else might be safe. But no one saw the sparks coming from a short-circuited roof wire. Just as Darlene reached the cabin door, a huge explosion blasted the car. Stephanie's body plunged into a nearby pond. Charlie was pinned down by wooden boards. Injured and struggling, Darlene crawled over and freed Charlie. She told him to save Stephanie quickly. Right after she said that, a light pole fell from above and killed her on the spot. Charlie rushed to pull Stephanie out. She was unconscious. Luckily, he revived her just in time. The two hugged each other and laughed. This had to be what William meant by, die and come back. But when she heard Darlene had died, Stephanie couldn't hold back her tears. Only she and Charlie were left from Iris's bloodline. A week later, Charlie and Stephanie visited his girlfriend's house. While fixing Charlie's clothes, Stephanie pricked her finger on a rose thorn. Suddenly, she remembered the nightmare. In that dream, Iris had also pricked her finger. Then an old woman dropped a coin. It rolled down the steps and got stuck between the train tracks. A train was speeding toward it. Charlie's girlfriend's father was a doctor. When he heard how Charlie saved Stephanie, he explained that Stephanie hadn't technically died. If you're unconscious and someone gets your breathing back, but your heart never stopped, then you weren't really dead, he said casually. But to Stephanie and Charlie, that didn't sound good. Stephanie saw a red car, just like in her dream. Charlie's girlfriend was even wearing the same clothes as Iris had. Her bad feeling grew stronger. Then the train derailed. Crash happened. Train was charging straight at them. Stephanie tripped and fell. Charlie grabbed her and pulled her up. It looked like they had escaped, but they hadn't. Please give a like and subscribe for more enjoyable videos. Thanks for watching.